Hello everyone, as you can see today I'm all dressed up for you. I'm Victor, welcome to my channel. I'm a flight attendant. Every week I share with you some tips and tricks on how to travel in better condition, and today I was inspired by a book I had for years about airline uniforms, and I said, well, how about I talk about uniforms? So this is an old Air Canada uniform that I've been wearing in years and years, but I just wanted to tell you a little bit of story about uniforms and how they evolved through the ages. Back in the days, flying was something very exceptional. You may do that once a year if you were very rich. So people used to dress up, like dress a lot, like kind of Jessica Rabbit for a woman when she wanted to go on a plane. Nowadays, flying is something more casual. It's almost like taking the bus. So you buy a cheap ticket and then you don't need to dress up. And especially if you're flying on a low-cost airline, we barely see anyone really dress up for flying. You used to have your clothes that you wear on Sunday when you go to church. Well, not many people go to church anymore. It's still a few, but not many people still go compared to years and years ago. And that's why we see more comfort rather than style. A uniform for an airline is very important. That's actually the whole brand, and it's worn by a lot of people. So we are ambassadors of the airline everywhere when we're in uniform. I see people looking at me when I walk in the street to go and take the bus to the airport wearing my uniform all the time. And that's normal now, but at the beginning you kind of like look down or have a smile. In the 30s, when you started to have commercial flight with paying passengers, flight attendants were air hostesses, so it was a woman's job only. And the uniform was actually most of the time inspired by military ceremony, so official military clothes. They were, as I said, they were only women. They couldn't be married. Usually they had to be under 30 years old. The day they wanted to get married, they had to resign, and then they had to go on the scale pretty much every day, or at least every week. So if you're a bit too heavy, you're not flying anymore. I remember the flight attendant job, air hostess, started from a boat because you used to have cruise ships for years and years, way before flying. So people used to go on the ship and there were attendants looking after them. And a lot of tasks were quite similar, except everything is related to flying, but the service tasks were quite similar. But in '65, Braniff arrived and did kind of a revolution with their clothes. It was very colorful. I don't know how convenient it was to work with that, but probably be able to remove a lot of stuff. But as you can see, Braniff have really fancy clothes. United, although, has something very distinctive, and a few airlines follow the same kind of path. But that was the beginning of a new era for uniforms in the airline industry. On the other hand, some airlines went with something more classic, like Pierre Bellman from France was doing the TWA uniform. Now you may know Southwest Airline if you've been flying in the US. It's a low-cost airline. It's actually the #1 low-cost airline in the US. Back then they really claimed their roots from the southwest of the US, and flight attendants were wearing cowboy boots. And honestly, I don't know how they can couple. They're wearing this kind of heels and boots, but this is what they were wearing with some really short skirts. In the meantime, Air France really enjoyed their shoulder pads. As you can see, that was from Louis Ferraud. And when we move into the 90s, a lot of airlines started to get dark blue, navy blue uniforms. I don't know if it's because it's inspired by the sky, the blue sky, but we start to see them pretty much everywhere. Air France have a very long history with Christian Lacroix. They've been working together for years. He's still currently doing their uniforms. This is the model from 2005. And I love Christian Lacroix. He's actually my favorite designer. This is the Qantas, the Australian airline uniform, and this is the Air New Zealand with a lot of pink color. So when your uniform is designed, it's supposed to fit all shapes and all body shapes. Remember, there's not only flight attendant wearing it, there's also ground staff, people working in sales office, in front of public. So again, everybody is representing the airline visually needs to wear the uniform. I remember when I was like 18, there was an ad to apply for Air France, and in a job description there was a sentence, and I still remember it. It was in French, but if I translate, it said, wearing the uniform requires a perfect harmony in your body. Which means that if you're any plus size, you can forget about applying because you won't get the job. I know they can't say we don't want fat people, but pretty much that if you read in between lines and between words, this is exactly what they were saying. Uniform needs to be very resistant. It's not something we wear only for ceremonies. We wear it every day. We serve food with it. We clean vomit with it. We get stain of coffee or tea, so it needs to be easy washable. We even refresh the toilets wearing Christian Lacroix. So yes, it's not that glamorous all the time. So uniform needs to be easily washable. We get an allowance where I work every second week. We get a little bit of money for dry cleaning, so we can bring a uniform to dry cleaning. Usually my uniform will last 2 years and I can get a replacement, and the shirts will last 1 year. So I get 5 shirts per year, and but the rest, the jacket, the trousers, and the waistcoat will supposed to last 2 years. Unless it's a big issue, it get damaged, but otherwise that's the expecting lifetime. So as I was saying, they make uniform for a lot of people. Even though they're made by designers, most of the time they actually produce in China because we need huge quantities. And that's it, that's a small blurb about the uniform. So again, I got inspired by this really cool book I had for years. It's not only about uniforms inside, but also about bags, about galley design, cabin design, even trays and everything. So really cool book. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're watching it on YouTube, you can put a thumb up. You can also subscribe if you're on Instagram or YouTube. And then I'll see you next week. Bye.